Sam Houston over at Herman Park, about 5 minutes here from the Galleria area, Southwest Houston. We're coming to you live from the Post Oak Hilton, the home base for this year's 2018 Southland Conference Football Media Day. What a day it has been all morning long. Our first 5 teams, 6 more here during the afternoon. We're down to our final 2, Sam Houston State. And here in about a half an hour, we will hear from the Huskies of Houston Baptist. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Let's check in now with the Bearkats of Sam Houston State. Cats, 18 starters are back, 7 on offense, 7 on defense, 4 special teams as well. Last year, another terrific season for the Cats and their head coach, Keeler. 12-2 overall, 8-1 in the Southland Conference. Second place finish. Season opener coming up September 8th. They will open against Prairie View A&M. And then the Southland opener, September 22nd, at Nichols. Sam Houston State also owns the longest active home winning streak in FCS at 20 games. All right, let's talk more for the Bearkats now, and we are pleasure to be joined on stage by their head coach, Keeler, 5th season on the job, 25th year head coach.
It couldn't be that many. You sure?
Is it? 25. I don't know. That's what I read, I think.
It is 25.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's pretty accurate.
I got my first head job when I was 13.
Wow, okay, that's how it works then. It's flown by. You've been very successful, great career. And obviously things are going very well at Sam Houston State. Coming off a terrific season that you guys had, 12-2 finish, deep in the playoffs. Talk about how you kind of carry it over from that great in the spring and out into the fall.
Well, you know, probably no team in the country, maybe at any level, has lost as many great players as we have. You know, we lose 2-time National Player of the Year at quarterback Jeremiah Briscoe. We lose the second leading rusher in the history of Sam Houston State. Corey Avery. We lose a second-round draft choice in P.J. Hall. Best receiver, you know, numbers-wise in the history of Southland Conference, Jedediah Lewis. So the list goes on of all the, you know, just great players we lost. But at the same time, we have a good hunk of the nucleus back. And I think we're going to be a little bit different. I think we're going to be a little bit more of a physical team on offense. A little bit, have probably a little bit better ability to run the football at you, which is something we've wanted to do, but I think we have the offensive line this year to do that. And I think defensively, I feel really good about where we are at linebacker, and I think we're going to be more physical on the defensive line. So, you know, I think we've made some changes, I think, in a positive way. I think we're going to just look a little bit different, but I think definitely you'll notice we're going to be a little bit more physical on both sides of the ball.
Carry over from that experience, going all the way to the semifinal round, and the guys returning from that kind of experience, I guess the hunger to take it another level.
Yeah, you know, 46 wins in 4 years. You know, Alabama, North Dakota State, and Clemson, the only ones that have won more games than we have. I think it's a cultural thing. I think our kids understand that, you know, when you're in our culture, it's about certain expectations. You know, there's accountability. When things aren't going our way, we believe that we can, you know, get the ship righted. You know, we had a great game with Northwestern State where we had to drive the ball the last, you know, drive of the game to win the game, and we did that. I don't think that happens without having that kind of culture that we've developed the last 4 years. So, again, we lose some great players, but I think we have a great nucleus back. I think, you know, going deep into the playoffs the last 4 years, the kids are hungry for that opportunity to win a national championship. But the reality is that North Dakota State and James Madison have just totally outclassed us, and we've gotten to that level. And we think when we get to that level, the next time, being more physical has to be the difference in our football game, and we've worked hard at being more physical.
Yeah, you and I have talked over the years, and each year you've been there, you've talked about the depth you guys have at so many positions. You're playing guys that are younger, getting that experience, and we're seeing names now it seems like we've been talking about for 3 or 4 years in the program. How has that helped you as you've built your depth at some key positions on your team?
Yeah, I think you know, one of the things we've done best is try to play a lot of guys. We'll play 8 offensive linemen, 4 or 5 receivers, 3 running backs. I think this year you'll probably see us play 2 quarterbacks on a fairly regular, amount of time. Not alternating, but you're going to see a guy go in there for packages because I think we have 3 quarterbacks that can play. Defensively, same thing. We rotate a lot of defensive linemen, a lot of linebackers, a lot of guys in the secondary. So, there's a conscious effort with how we play to make sure we play a lot of players. And then you have an injury or guys graduate, you have a lot of depth coming back, and you'll see we have a lot of guys who have played a lot of football coming back on this football team.
If you have a question for Coach Keeler, raise your hand, and we will get a microphone to you. And just state your name and affiliation, if you don't mind, as you ask your question. We'll start here in the front.
Jordan Smith with the Houstonian. Kind of looking, obviously, y'all were named the preseason favorite in the conference. Kind of looking at that, how much more added pressure does that put on y'all to take care of those first few conference games against Nichols and Central Arkansas and Stephen F.?
It's kind of interesting when you look at our player manual and you open up to that schedule. We won't even have any teams on our schedule. We're leaving that page blank because it's really more about us just trying to become the best football team we can become. But when you do take a step back and you look at the schedule, you do realize, boy, it's front-loaded. There's some really heavy hitters early on. And obviously, we need to get some of those new guys and some of those young guys, that quarterback position, kind of up to speed pretty quickly because, again, it's front-loaded and they're some of the best teams in the league right away. I think it's going to be a great challenge to go to Nichols early in the season and have to play them at their place, a place that had 10,000 fans come out for their playoff game against South Dakota. And it's a place that coach has gotten that place energized. And not only are they talented, but they also have a lot of confidence. But there's going to be some great games early in the season for us, no question.
Go ahead.
Tyler Josephson with the Houstonian. You talk about all those great players that you've lost, and I know to you preseason rankings are, they're just numbers and you guys don't get caught up in all that. But what does it mean to you to still be at the top of that preseason column, even, with that? What does that say about the rest of this program? Yeah,
and I think what you'll see is this conference has gotten so much better since I've been here, especially from the bottom up. I mean, I just was so impressed last year with Abilene Christian, how they played us to the very end, how well coached they are, how well their players were taught, how they schemed. And I see it, there's a lot of good young coaches that have come into this conference. There's a lot of change right now in this conference. So possibly we were voted, preseason #1 because we do have a lot of guys coming back, and, I'm becoming one of the old guys in this conference now. So it plays a little bit more stability with Sam Houston right now. But at the same time, like I said, since the day I got here, I've seen this conference get better and better, and especially from the bottom up. There was a time when you could look at your schedule and say, here's 3 or 4 that we feel pretty good. You don't have those games anymore. Every game now is a game where you feel like, you know what, you need to have a great week of preparation, because if you don't, we're the hunted. I mean, we're the #1 team. We're the team the last 4 years have won the most games. People are going to be, giving us their best football game. And Northwestern State's such a great example. Those guys coming and playing a terrific football game with us, and us having to drive the ball that last series to win the ball game.
Let's go over here. Shea Walker.
Shea Walker, Southland Conference Television Network. Coach, you talked about the new offensive coordinator, but you guys have always had this method of playing fast. And over 1,000 offensive plays last year. With the new discipline, not a big change, but with the new discipline, how do you see that affecting the pace of your offense?
Yeah, Ryan Carty played for me at Delaware, was actually Joe Flacco's backup, had been at New Hampshire for a number of years. The thing I loved about Ryan, tremendously bright individual, was in a league where those defenses were always better than the talent he had on offense. So he's used to going up against people that have better people than he does. Is a disciple of Chip Kelly's. He was with Chip at New Hampshire. So playing fast is not unusual for him. I think possibly having the go-ahead from me a little bit more than he did it with Sean McDonald. I think, the last couple of years, their defense was better than their offense at New Hampshire, so they wanted to kind of keep a little bit more at pace. But, he had that experience with Chip and playing for me at Delaware. I think we'll play not quite as fast, but still play fast. But the thing we won't do, we're not going to give up scheme for speed. And that's one of the things that he and I have talked about. Still play fast, but I think you'll see us a little bit more intricate with some of our schemes than we've been in the past.
Question up front, Ben.
Ben Reichert, GoBearkats.com. Coach, one of the things that we're going to have to address this year, the quarterback position, you mentioned that you have 3. Talk about what each of those quarterbacks bring and where that battle stands right now.
Yeah, Mike Dare was a Rutgers bounce back, was the 18th ranked drop back quarterback in the country, 6'6", really athletic, strong arm, had a great spring game. I think his experience is something that gives him a unique advantage over the other 2. Ty Brock was the #1 high school quarterback in the country coming out for our level. Only thing Ty hasn't had is experience. Broke his leg his junior year and his senior year. 6'4", tremendously athletic. Thought he had a great spring. Again, only thing he's missing right now is that a game experience. And then we went to the Woodlands and got Eric Schmid, a young man who had 48 touchdowns and 4 interceptions his senior year. And here's a guy that when we timed him at our football camp, he ran a 4.4, and we took him as an athlete. And there's no question that we might have to have some packages in the game for a guy like Eric Schmid because he creates a lot of problems, getting on the edge, pulling the ball down, some of the run game you can use. So we're excited. They say sometimes when you have more than one, you don't have any. I really do think we have more than one. I think we have 3 that we can win with. And like I said, Mike Dare, that experience of playing in the junior college, getting a full season in, those game reps, I think really gives him a unique advantage early on. I think as the season wears on, I think it's going to be a great competition, and competition always makes everyone better.
Question in the back left side.
Richard Dean, Houston Chronicle. Coach, as far as the transfers, is there 1 or 2 players that you expect and really you're going to have to count on for immediate play that you really think have the biggest impact on the team?
I don't think there's like Mike Dare probably is the one that you think about because it's the quarterback position and the fact that we're sort of raw and we're sort of green at that quarterback spot. Even though we love the 2 young guys we have, he's probably the guy that you think, probably defensively, we have a couple defensive tackles. We went to California, got some JC kids that, we thought we needed to match up with the more physical teams in our league and also in the country. When you think about, Nichols wants to run the football at you. They want to get a big offensive line. Same thing with McNeese. And so we felt, going and getting some of those guys were going to be helpful to kind of go match up. And then when we've gotten up against James Madison, North Dakota State, it's been very obvious. We haven't been physical enough up front. So consciously, we went out and got a couple of defensive tackles, some big guys inside. And I say the quarterback position, Mike Dare might be as polished a quarterback as I've recruited, and I've recruited some pretty good ones. I think he has all the upside in the world, and it's really kind of interesting. He's going to find himself in kind of a dogfight because these 2 young guys who are both going to be redshirt freshmen next year are pretty talented.
Question up front.
Jordan Smith, talking about obviously the different locations that you're going to be for the conference. Last year you had 5 home games for conference games. Now you only have 3. Kind of looking at that, how important do those road games become since you're going to be away from Huntsville for so long?
Yeah, and just the way our conference works, this is a year that we have 4 conference games at home, but one of those conference games is the Piney Woods. So now all of a sudden you only have 3 at your place. And every other year that happens to us. So then you're forced to pay for 2 games that come in because obviously with a program like Sam Houston, we don't want to have 4 home games. We want to have at least 5. And there's some challenges. Like I said early on, playing Nichols on the road is going to be a great challenge. We didn't play well the last time we went to Incarnate Word. And I know they've improved dramatically. I know they're putting more resources into it. I know there's a lot of energy there. They're talking about facilities. They're talking about, some different funding for the program. So I think our players have been through, our veteran players have been through this league now a couple of times. They've seen the growth in this conference in terms of the teams that you would think were sort of the bottom of the league. Those teams now are getting much better. and there's a lot more parity in this league. So, that's why we have on in the player manual, no real schedule on there, because guys, it's worry about taking care of our culture. It's worry about taking care of all the things you need to do to win ball games. But let's not worry about any particular ball game right now. Let's worry about how we do things more than actually winning the game. Let's talk about how we're going to win the game.
A question before we toss over to Lincoln. Jason Barfield in the corner.
Jason Barfield, Bearkats Sports Network. Coach, when you look at your coaching staff and the new guys that you've brought in, how long does it take them to get up to speed just in terms of what to expect once you get into like conference play and kind of what they're going to be looking at?
Yeah, the good news is we've won a lot of ball games. The bad news is that when you win a lot of ball games, they steal your coaches. And so, we went through a little transition this year, third offensive coordinator in 3 years, new offensive line coach, lost my defensive line coach to East Carolina. So, some guys new guys brought in, some moving around. I really like the staff, and the kids have really bought into the staff. There's been some mandates from me. When we lost to North Dakota State, my strength coach loves to tell the story that I had him in the corner at 1:30 in the morning before we hopped on the plane after we went through the check-in, and I'm talking about how we're going to change the strength program. And that's sort of the mentality, is like, we've been a consensus number 3 team in the country the last 4 years in a row. If you look at the last 4 years totally, we're the number 3 team. We're trying to find a way to get over that hump. And one of those ways to get over that hump, we think, is to be more physical. So the coaches I hired all have been brought in with a mentality of, okay, we need to get this team to be a more physical football team. The great thing about being here in the great state of Texas is we're going to get some great athletes. Along with that, we need to find a way to incorporate more of a physical brand to football, and that's kind of what our hope is, that these new guys I've added on the coaching staff can help bring along that mentality of that we're going to be a more physical football team.
All right, I'll catch up, spend a couple more minutes with Coach Keeler here in just a moment. Right now, we're going to toss it over to his left, the interview table there. Let's check in once again with Lincoln Rose, standing by with a couple of student athletes from Sam Houston State. Lincoln?
Yeah, speaking about student athletes from the great state of Texas, Mitchell Watanabe, the offensive lineman, now senior out of the Alamo City, and of course Adrian Contreras, the senior defensive back, grew up just north of Austin, up in Georgetown. Let's start off Sam Houston State. We talk about the offense. We'll get to the defense soon enough, but the offense, Jeremiah Briscoe, your back-to-back National Player of the Year, your Walter Payton Award recipient, out the door, and now you have 3, as Coach mentions, very capable quarterbacks, but each bring their own skill set. For an offensive lineman, what are the differences for you depending on who's back there?
The biggest thing for us as offensive line, as offensive unit, between Jeremiah and the 3 quarterbacks we have now, is mobility. And the way our offense has changed, the way we can attack, the attacking position of the quarterback, like, people are going to have to scheme for that just because of their mobility, and just brings bigger pressure on defenses overall.
Adrian, on that defensive side, your offense is going to put up some points. How does that change the mindset back there? You may let one possession slip away, but you're going to be in a ball game all 4 quarters.
Well, that's never the way we want to play, is to be depending on the offense. We want to do our part. We want to play our 1/3 of the game. There's offense, defense, and special teams, so we want to be successful on our third. So we want, if the offense is having trouble on a drive or something like that, the defense should be able to go out there and make a stand.
Coach talks about getting over the hump. Of course, he already has a national championship on his resume. As a guy who has constantly gotten to the national semifinals, playing in those ball games, he talked about physicality. What, in your mind, has been the difference between you and those top 2 teams?
Yeah, so like you said, I've played 3 seasons so far, and we've been just a few wins away from being national champions. And for me, I feel like the difference is just being brilliant in the basics, and that's something that we talk about, just being fundamentally sound, knowing our job and doing our job, so that we can be the best in the country.
Mitchell, I don't think anybody will label Jeremiah as just a system guy, but it does seem like everywhere on this offense, talented guys leave, and yet the results are the same the next year in the win-loss column, more deep runs. What is this year? You're without Jeremiah, without Corey, without Yedidiah. You do happen to have the Offensive Player of the Year coming back this year. We've gone this long without talking about Davion Davis. But what is it about this program, this system under Coach Keeler that the confidence is there, and at the end of the year, the results are there?
I think the biggest thing is probably depth. You build depth, and then young guys learn. And as you see, Yedidiah leaves, but we still have 2 All-American wide receivers coming back. And offense line, 7 returners on the offense side and 4 of them on the offense line. You're just building depth as the years go by. And you learn from the dudes in front of you, great players. As Jeremiah Briscoe, you have 3 quarterbacks, well, 2 that learned behind him. And so it just helps us grow more as a program, not just for this season, but for seasons to come.
How important is that? It's hard to leave a legacy as the first to do something at Sam Houston State. There's been so much success here, but what do you hope to be able to leave as your legacy?
The only thing missing on my legacy, the team's legacy, is just a national championship, and just to get over that hump is why we're changing our philosophy, our culture, and that's what we got to do.
You got that ring from a conference championship a couple years ago. I know you'd like to grab a little bit more bling as well. Adrian, for you personally on the defensive side, where is there still room in the next month for you to continue to make strides for the regular season? And where throughout the season do you think we'll see the biggest improvement from you?
Just like I said, just being brilliant in the basics, fundamentally sound in the game of football, staying in the meeting rooms, watching film, learning more about the game, knowing our opponent, and being able to exploit things that we learned throughout studying film.
How excited are you every day in practice to line up against this offense? How has that made this defensive unit even better?
Oh, it's hard to explain how incredible it is, because in my 3 seasons of playing here, I've lined up against some of the best athletes that I've seen in any game. Like Davion Davis, for example, I don't know that I've ever gone up against in a game a receiver as good as him. So like to have so much talent that we do and to be able to see that every day in practice, it makes us so much more prepared for games and for our opponents.
Are you an Oakland Raiders fan right now?
Oh, gotta be.
Yeah, P.J. Hall's second round selection of the Raiders. Of course, Jeremiah Briscoe spending his camp with the Super Bowl champions up there in Philadelphia. I believe Philadelphia now has a rule that they only will take FCS quarterbacks, and they've had plenty of success with that, Randy.
Yes, they have, and hopefully Jeremiah Briscoe will get his shot one day as well, if not in Philly, somewhere else. A couple more minutes here with Coach Keeler, and before we're here to talk about the new season, but I do want to ask, I want to just follow up, if you don't mind. They were talking about PJ. What does it mean for you? You know what he brought to this program. You had the chance to coach him, to see him get that call in that second round representing Sam Houston.
If you understand PJ's history, PJ was a young man when recruited as a freshman. They weren't sure if they were going to play him as an H-back or as a defensive end. And so they redshirted him for a year and decided to put him over on defense. And when we get here, my defensive line coach, Phil Petit, who had been with me every place I've ever been and is one of the best I've ever seen, said, I don't think anyone knows how special this kid could be. And we got him at 235 pounds. Over his career, he got to about 275. Going into his senior year, I said, PJ, I really think for your career and for our best interest, I think playing in the inside is the way to go. So we went up to 308 and had a phenomenal season again, and then obviously put himself in a position to be a second-round draft choice. So such a humble young man, just all he cared about was us winning, a friend to every guy on this team, just who's a great family kid. Really exciting for him to go through the process and come out as a second-round pick, and I think he'll have a great career.
And it's part of coaching. You've had so many great players come through the program, and you've lost a handful from last year, but still you've got so many that have the experience that are coming back. You've got to be able to just keep moving forward and having new guys step up, and I know you've enjoyed having these guys develop and ready to get that challenge. Yeah,
Davion Davis and Nathan Stewart might be 2 of the greatest players I've ever coached. Yeah. And no one even talks about those guys because of the guys we've had before. And so, again, I think we've done a really good job of recruiting good young players, try to, play a lot of guys, create some depth. Adrian kind of alluded to it's a great challenge, when the offense and defense go up against each other. They really get after it and try to make each other better. Yeah. And again, we talk a lot about culture. And, we have a great culture. We want a greater culture. We have great leadership. We want greater leadership. And that's been kind of the theme that we've had since we lost that game to North Dakota State is for us to move it to another level, we can't stay stagnant. We can't stay where we're at. And if it means we're going to tweak some things offensively and defensively and special teams, we need to do those things, and we're going to do those things. But also just every one of us in taking more accountability and trying to move this to another level. So I'm excited with the nucleus of players we have coming back. I think we have some great leaders. I know the upperclassmen in our leadership council meetings have just raved about the freshman class in terms of not only their ability, but also the kind of young men we brought into the program. And so it's exciting. You know, we talked earlier, this is my 25th season as a head coach. I get goosebumps every single year. I mean, because right now, like, just your imagination can go wild. And, you know, I really think I have a really good team coming back. I'm excited to get these guys in training camp, and I'm excited to kind of go on this journey with them to see how good we can be.
All right, lastly, let's hit the schedule real quick before we wrap it up. Take a look at that. What do you think of the schedule as you kick it off here, and, of course, then eventually get in the meat of conference play as well?
Yeah, Prairie View gave us everything that we could possibly imagine last year. Again, we're used to being the hunted, and so those guys will be excited. They have some new things going on offensively and defensively there, so you know, walking in, you're not sure what you're going to get. They've had a coaching change. North Dakota was a playoff team 2 years ago, or a playoff caliber team 2 years ago, and then last year, with almost the same team coming back, really had a poor season. So you're not sure what you're going to get from them, but they're a team that, you know, I think ability-wise will give us everything we can handle. And then you go down to Nichols, and you play down there, and it's a tough place to play. It's a tough trip. Like I said, I'm just so excited for what they got going in terms of having 10,000 fans at that playoff game. I'm sure they're going to have a great crowd for us. Excited to get some gumbo. Had some great gumbo last time we played down there. But, you know, so, and you just look at the schedule, you know, there's really, there's no bottom teams anymore. I mean, every year there's going to be a fight now, because I think the teams that were at one time at the bottom are starting to move up in position to be successful. When I was at Delaware, I think the year we won the national championship, we were picked in the lower part of the league. The year Villanova won the national championship, the same thing. They were picked in the middle to the lower part of the league. I think this league is becoming the same way. I think it's becoming a league that year in and year out, it's going to be tough to figure out who's going to be the eventual conference champion, because there's becoming a lot more parity than there ever was 4 years ago.
All right. Good luck this season. Appreciate it. Head coach Casey Keeler of Sam Houston State Bearkats will hit the practice field very, very soon. Appreciate it, Coach.